Major Hurricane Fiona about to pass very close to Bermuda late tonight into early tomorrow morning. And then, of course, I am watching Invest 98L very closely. Good morning, everyone. It's Weather United here, and happy Thursday morning. Before I do get started, I do ask really nicely that you do subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that like button, and share this with your family and friends on social media. Alright, we're going to briefly talk about Major Hurricane Fiona. We're not going to spend hardly any time on this today since we are really worried about Invest 98L that still has a huge potential of becoming one of our strongest storms, possibly this hurricane season. I don't want to get ahead of myself on that, but this 98L really concerns me a lot. But in the meantime, we're keeping an eye on Major Hurricane Fiona that still remains a very powerful Category 4 hurricane with 130-mile-an-hour winds as it heads very close to Bermuda. Clouds already increasing. The winds are already starting to pick up there. It's going to get really bad there tonight. And we could even see a lot of the shear that still is impacting the system, as you can see here on satellite, really lopsiding the system pretty significantly. Here's the latest look at the National Hurricane Center as of 8 o'clock this morning Eastern Daylight Time. This could even be weaker than 130 miles an hour. It would not surprise me. Between 120 to 130 miles an hour. It is moving to the northeast at 13 miles an hour, and there's already a hurricane warning out for Bermuda, so you need to make sure you have all precautions ready. Make sure you're getting ready, boarding up your house, because this is looking very significant. So really quickly, hurricane conditions are expected on Bermuda tonight through Friday morning, and a hurricane warning has been issued for the island. Fiona is expected to affect portions of the Atlantic Canada as a very powerful hurricane force cyclone late Friday into Saturday, and significant impacts from high winds, storm surge, and heavy rainfall are all becoming increasingly likely. Interest in these areas should definitely closely monitor the progress of Fiona and its impacts to the forecast. All right, and then of course, large swells generated by Fiona are expected to cause dangerous and possibly life-threatening surf and rip currents along the east coast of the U.S., the Bahamas, and Bermuda and Atlantic Canada during the next few days. Please consult products from your local weather office, please, okay? Here's a look at the latest GFS model on Hurricane Fiona. Again, very powerful system headed for Bermuda late tonight into early tomorrow morning. So make sure, again, you have everything prepared, ready to go. Hopefully you all can evacuate because, again, we're dealing with a Category 4 hurricane, possibly headed that way. It should weaken a little bit, and then by late Friday afternoon into the evening hours, it's going to transition into an extratropical cyclone as it hits Canada at 9:30 millibars. By early Saturday morning, the wind field's going to expand. We're talking about significant impacts on Nova Scotia and some of the Canadian provinces there as a very powerful extratropical cyclone through Saturday and even into Sunday. Now, the rest of this video, we are going to be talking about Invest 98L, as this is a huge concern right now for the northwestern Caribbean, possibly for Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula, as well as western Cuba, Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands. And then eventually, this could be a huge threat along the Gulf Coast of the United States, such as Florida, maybe Louisiana, maybe even Texas. Yeah, we got a lot of room for error here on the models, and this, again, has the potential of becoming a very strong cyclone in the next 5 to 10 days. So huge concern on 98L in this video. So looking at the satellite imagery, we can see with what it looks like right now, and we can definitely get an idea. There is definitely a better defined circulation here, with even perhaps southwesterly winds here on the southeastern side, with winds even curling around from the north and from the northwest. So this is getting ready to almost close off. The deep convection, however, is disorganized because, yep, we got the shear from the outflow from Fiona that is hitting it in the northerly face. You can even see the cloud filaments here really just blowing straight to the south here, which indicates we have very strong northeasterly and northerly shear that is preventing 98L from better organizing. But as soon as this shear abates, we are going to see substantial organization very quickly, and I'm very much thinking that we're going to be dealing with possibly a tropical storm, or if not a low-grade hurricane, in the next 5 to 8 days. This is what it's looking like on the latest GFS model, the 06Z run, as of Thursday morning, and we can see this is the system that we're really watching. Let's not really worry about Fiona since we talked about it, but instead, this is what we're watching. That is going towards Aruba in the Venezuela coast as a surface low, and again, we're looking at moderate to heavy rainfall, very strong winds. There have been already reports of wind gusts over 40 to 50 miles an hour with these outflow bands, these arcing bands due to some dry air, evaporational cooling. The air descends and dries and it cools, and that leads to very strong wind gusts at times within these bands that do develop. So going forward, his system is not in no hurry of organizing right now, all because of the shear. So everyone, I want you to say thank you to Hurricane Fiona. While it's destructive in Bermuda, it's going to impact that area. It is also going to be destructive to Invest 98L. So as in destructive, there's a lot of shear. It's not going to allow 98L to develop very quickly at all. So thank you, Fiona, for keeping 98L from developing because of its outflow. The outflow from Fiona literally impacting 98L. But that's not going to last too long, because we know on the GFS model, this could become a tropical storm or a tropical depression in a couple of days, and then eventually maybe a tropical storm in 3 days. Now, I want you all to please take note that the GFS is our westerly outlier, which means it's the furthest west model. The Canadian, the Icon, and the European model, the Euro, have it all further east. So please take this with a grain of salt, please, because the GFS could do some crazy stuff with its intensity and its track, but it still shows a major hurricane, believe it or not. So by day 4, it is a strong tropical storm on this run by early Monday morning, and then by, say, early Tuesday morning, it is a powerful hurricane potentially at 967 millibars, hitting Belize in Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula, Playa del Carmen area, crosses that area, and then by, say, day 6 and day 7, it could become a very powerful monster in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, this is as far out as I am going to go with this model due to accuracy, due to uncertainties in the models, so please keep that in mind, all right? When we take a look here at the GEFS, this is now the Global Ensemble Forecasting System. So you have a lot of members that run into the operational, right? But this is the ensemble, and this shows us cyclonic vorticity. That's the colors that you see right here, cyclonic vorticity, and then you got your 500 millibar height, which is these blue lines that you see. Take note of that. And then, of course, you got your 200 millibar wind pattern, which are these flags. See these flags, the outflow pattern around and away from Fiona? That's the wind barbs that we're looking at. And so this is 3-in-1, 3 layers put into one image that Tropical Tidbits created. Thank you for that. And so when we go forward in time here, Friday morning, in the next 30 hours, we can see where the vorticity is on this map in relation to the shear and the flow. And yes, look at all this easterly flow. That's why the thing's not in no hurry of developing at all. It is not until we get into, say, on Sunday into Monday. Now, it's not really explicitly shown here because this is the ensemble, right? This is an average mean of the forecast. But we can see that as soon as we get even to day 4, let's go, even to day 3, it might find itself in much lighter upper level winds and around this anticyclone, as we can see. And so this might be able to develop fairly quickly beyond day 3. By day 4, it is in very weak steering or upper level wind patterns, divergent flow aloft. We got this anticyclone going, so very favorable, conducive environment for 98L by day 4. By day 5, it is very conducive, right underneath that subtropical ridge at 200 millibars, and then most of the ensembles go a little crazy with it. But most of the ensembles, to be quite frankly honest, are well over here into the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. Now, just take note that I'm about to show you the operational models well further to the west. So that could be a very big outlier and a pretty big concern. And that's why we don't go very far on the GFS operational model, because of the uncertainties that are there. So now on the European prediction system or ensemble prediction system, this is the Euro model, right? And we can go and look at this further and see in the next couple of days, there's your system, different model, different outcome. And we can see in about 4 days, this takes a little longer to get underneath this anticyclone, but still the same scenario, big intense area of confidence with this anticyclone that's going to be overhead and being steered by this 500 millibar ridge to its northeast. So the ending result is with this trough that's going to be dropping southward. We'll talk more about this when the system actually develops to get a better idea what the steering flow will actually look like. But we got a weakness in the ridge to the north. We got a ridge here to the northwest of the system. We got another ridge here. And so there's going to be a weakness that is going to be created by this trough to the north. And so the system is able to turn northward. And we can see this all occur on the ensembles. And most of them, to be quite honest, indicate something like this. A lot of them near Florida and the eastern Gulf of Mexico versus maybe the operational GFS well to the west, which could be an outlier in this scenario. And then that kind of dissipates and kind of gets absorbed by the larger trough by day 8 and day 9. So now we only have one very bullish model, and of course it's going to be the HWRF, but also the HMON has a similar scenario here. And I wanted to show you all this because I think this is very important, because of course we do have people that could be impacted by this. All right, so Invest 98L here in the next 24 hours. We have perhaps tropical depression force winds. Look how strong that surface low is there. Very well closed. Only organizing convection would lead to a tropical depression with this. And so over the next 48 hours, it struggles. We are not seeing much in the way of development with this. If it's a tropical depression right now, hypothetically, it's going to remain that way. We're not talking about any organization, any intensification with Invest 98L in the next couple of days. By day 3, it does begin to organize just a little bit more, as you all can see here on the latest model, right? So by day 3, there is Jamaica right there. Okay, Jamaica with those easterly winds at anywhere between 30 to 40 miles an hour. And then it hits the Cayman Islands. Look at this. Cayman Island warning, folks. Right here, you could be looking at a hurricane, and this is 4 days out. This is not very far out at all, and which is why I use the HWRF model. And then hitting the Cuba area as a very powerful major hurricane potentially here with 128 to 130 mile an hour winds and pressures down to 938 millibars. So we got very low pressures on this. This really has my attention when it gets into the Cuba area. How strong will it be? We just don't know, because as it crosses over, it is going to be very strong, very intense system. All right, now we have one more model that I wanted to show you here on the HMON, and the HMON definitely has a stronger system, very much stronger, but also further west, very similar to the GFS model. So by, Monday afternoon, by day 5, we have a major hurricane, 123 mile an hour winds, and then right at landfall, 145 to near 150 miles an hour. But again, please take this with a grain of salt, folks, please. These are hurricane trained models, doesn't mean they're the most accurate, the most reliable models, because just a couple of model runs ago, the HMON barely showed anything. So did the HWRF. So we don't know exactly how strong it's going to be by the time it reaches the Yucatan or Western Cuba. All right, all we know is there's going to be a system that kind of resides in this area that intensifies. If that's a major hurricane or if that's not, we just don't know a definitive answer just yet. But all I gotta say is make sure you are monitoring the progress of 98L very closely. Really quickly, I wanted to show you all the GEFS ensemble mean on weathernerds.org, and you can see how the operational model does something like this. It is much further westerly. It's an outlier versus all the ensembles or all the members towards the east. So that's why, again, we cannot always rely on the operational GFS because it could be certainly an outlier. It can do some crazy stuff with the system. But either way, the GEFS, the ensemble, most of its members do indicate that winds could be greater than 80 knots. That is about a Category 2 hurricane beyond, again, the 5-day mark on this forecast. Now, the ensemble on the European model shows something different, as we can see here. Definitely, like I said, between a tropical storm, maybe a hurricane hitting the Florida coast, okay, perhaps even, say, Cuba, as a 50 to 70 knot system. So again, lots of room for error here, but a lot of the ensembles are really consistent at showing the mean of something like this. That's why the European seems to be more accurate, more realistic versus the operational GFS model. So now we're going to take a look here at our hurricane model forecasts on the NCAR, or RAL for short, the Tropical Guidance Project, and we can see that most of the models also have this hitting Cuba, then more of them hitting, say, the Yucatan, which is a very bad thing, because if it hits Cuba, it might get very close to the west coast of Florida and maybe even the Panhandle, like Panama City or Pensacola, Florida. Something to keep in mind in days to come. But again, look at how divergent this the models are at positioning at 5 days. One of the models has us hitting central Cuba, while, say, the westmost model, the HMON model, has us hitting the Yucatan. All right, so now as far as how strong will this get, well, we have two of the most reliable hurricane models now calling this to be a major hurricane in about 4 to 5 days. I don't know what the HMON model's doing. That's a little wild. But most of the models do have this at a hurricane, but unfortunately, I am not confident in this forecast yet, and I am still on the very low end of the forecast at calling this to become only a 45 to maybe 50 mile an hour tropical storm in the next 5 days. The black line is my forecast, and I am not confident just yet that this is going to become a hurricane yet, because we first got to see on how it does in the next couple of days, and then we can make a more accurate prediction that this is going to become a very serious system in the northwestern Caribbean. If you found this weather information very helpful, make sure you smash the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future updates. But anyways, I will see you in the next one. Peace!